resource that works closely with biomarkers, and we paired these for a reason, is the database shared resource. And Jeanine Genkinger and Kathy Crew co-direct, and Jeanine has kindly joined us today to talk about that shared resource. Thank you, Jeanine.
Sure. So I'm going to talk about our research activities and resources. I'm going to talk about pre the COVID-19 pandemic and what we're able to do currently with the ongoing pandemic. As Emer said, that both Kathy Crew and I co-direct this. Autumn Kim is our resource manager, and Yaniris and Tara are our bilingual recruiters. Our central function is to provide oversight and infrastructure for a centralized, cost-effective, and well-characterized cancer-related database. What had previously happened before DBSR got, we were initiated, was that we had a lot of separate cancer-specific or site-specific databases that were working in silo. But what we wanted to do was create a much more efficient system and create something that was more streamlined across the cancer center. So through the database shared resource, we worked with a number of individuals who had ongoing databases, and then also reached out to other sites to talk about creating something that would be central within the cancer center, and that could become a resource across researchers to be able to access. We rebranded our study name to Discover, and we did that about a year ago with insight from Cancer Center members. And Discover stands for Detect, Investigate, and Solve Cancer. I just saw that there was someone had a question for the biomarkers.
Go back.
Yep, so the DBSR, what we aim to do is to link tissue, biospecimens. We have an epidemiologic questionnaire that we can administer, and clinical data and outcomes that are housed in the electronic health record. So through the CDW, the Clinical Data Warehouse, through the NYP Tumor Registry, or through contacting Pathology, we try to link all that data so that when individuals come in and ask to access the data or to link to biospecimens that we've collected or biospecimens that have been collected as part of clinical procedures, we can process those requests. What we've done is try to create a fair and transparent system, and we have a scientific advisory board. What that means is that when someone goes to submit a request, they do that through iLab. We ask a number of questions about what their goals are. That gets evaluated, if it's a biospecimen, by 2 individuals in that scientific area. And then once it's gone through that review is passed on to a scientific advisory board made up of a number of individuals across the Cancer Center to review it for feasibility, but also for scientific rigor. Not moving forward. Oh, there we go. So this is just to show you a schematic of what happens with our data and how we link to a number of the other shared resources out there. So within the DBSR, in our Discover study, what we do is we have our recruiters go out and screen patients of clinicians and cancer sites that have agreed to participate in our study. The recruiters will go out, obtain consent. At the time, pre-COVID, we were drawing blood or trying to obtain saliva from the individual. We would ask them to complete a questionnaire. We have created online questionnaires, but we also have paper formats for individuals who do not want to complete it online. That data then from the questionnaires can get stored. Currently, we use Qualtrics, but that will be transitioning over to REDCap. We then take the tubes that have been collected and transport them to the biomarker shared resource, which Regina just nicely described. There, they process our samples, create aliquots, and freeze and store those. As Regina discussed, that data will be going into Open Specimen relatively soon, but we then link data from not only the Clinical Data Warehouse and in the future Epic, but we were linking data from Eclipsis and Crown and the NYP Tumor Registry we can link that also to any data that is housed, or tissue or samples, I should say, that's housed in pathology or the molecular path shared resource. And just to distinguish a little bit between the two, we go to CoPath if someone is requesting the FFPE samples of residual tissue, and we go to Hanina shared resource, the molecular pathology shared resource, if someone is requesting frozen tissue. Once we've been able to link that, we're able to merge that data for individuals. And then also we've worked on creating clean data sets of where we've actually reviewed a lot of the data elements from the questionnaire and clinical data, but we also do that on an ongoing basis for people. And we can do manual chart review depending on what the elements are to create a more, a database that's more useful for individuals that are requesting it. This all obviously has to be IRB approved, so we can assist individuals with creating IRBs that link to the database shared resource so that they can access these data elements and then also these types of samples. So prior to the ramp down, about approximately 5 years ago, we started the database shared resource, and under our Discover protocol, we've enrolled over 5,000 individuals who consented to participate. And usually when they consent, they've consented to a number of different things to be able to be recontacted, to allow us to link to their electronic health record, residual tissue. We also will collect blood or saliva if the participant agrees, and we ask them to complete questionnaires. We also, besides just doing collections for the database shared resource, we currently support research for a number of other initiatives, and a few of them are NCI funded. So I work on a project in particular with Brian Wolpin, which is a large pancreatic cancer consortia project around early detection. And we collect samples to be a part of that consortia. And as a part of that consortia in the future, our colleagues at Columbia can access those samples and use them for future research. On the right-hand side of the slide, I'm showing details about sort of the breakdowns by cancer site. You can see the largest numbers come from breast and pancreas, the GI upper, and then also from GU, which is bladder, kidney, and prostate. We do have a number of, we are trying to also collect healthy volunteers, individuals who don't currently have cancer but could be at risk for cancer. But you can see we do enroll individuals across a number of different cancer sites. And our goals are to expand to other cancer sites. We have 2 projects that were initiated just recently prior to COVID, which is both projects are involving Rich Carvajal, but the first one also involves David Vickers. We are going to start doing, we've started actually doing recruiting for them with regards to collecting, enrolling individuals with basal squamous cell carcinomas, Merkel cell, cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, and we had previously been enrolling for melanoma, but we've expanded that. This is hopefully going to support a large skin spore submission. They have submitted, and I believe they're waiting to find out about funding. The second project is this Precision Oncology Initiative, which is around advanced stage cancer. And there are a number of particular tumor types as listed here, such as cholangiocarcinoma and pancreas and triple negative breast cancer, where they're focusing on particular advanced stage cancers, where they want to collect serial PBMCs. So not only do we try to collect bloods at the first visit when we see an individual, but we can collect bloods numerous times based on our consent. This will be accessed. They'll also access archived tissue for genomic sequencing and including return of results. We're going to be working with them on consenting and then also, I believe, data extraction. Since March 16th, we have ramped down DDS but are still active. What that means is that our full and part-time employees, and I should say, I was telling us about the full-time employees, but we also have 5 part-time employees that work with DBSR. We've enabled them all to work remotely. We've given them laptops and mobile devices so they're able to call individuals. We're able to send out emails. And through that, we've been able to do online consenting and questionnaire administration. We also have IRB approval to do phone consents and phone questionnaire administration if the participant does not want to use the online version. And we can send them out, we can mail them paper consents and questionnaires. As I said, we have our recruiters are bilingual for English and Spanish. We also have our documents in simple Chinese that can be used, as that is the 3rd most common language that's been used for our DBSR participants. Since March 16th, we've done 49 consents and 38 questionnaires have been collected. Our DBSR recruiters are potentially being redeployed also to assist with remote consenting and any sort of remote questionnaire administration to the COVID-19 CU Biobank. So they'll be working on that initiative. And we are still able to process certain types of data requests primarily involving clinical data. And we're working with the molecular pathology shared resource around some COVID-specific tissue requests. These are being processed on a case-by-case basis, and if you have any questions, you can contact us before completing an iLab request to access this to find out what we're able to do during this time. I just wanted to also share some of the projects that we've been working with and assisting with. So Jeanine Hibschuss, who runs the Molecular Pathology Shared Resource, has been working with Autumn Kim, who's our resource manager, and they've been working on identifying COVID-19 positive cases that have tumor pathology specimens. So given that the numbers have been greatly increasing at Columbia, they're doing searches on a weekly basis to identify any samples that may be available for individuals if they want to do any COVID-specific research with tumor pathology. In that instance, we'll be able to also help with any linkage to data that an individual might need to do this type of work. Jessica Hawley just recently presented on her work within COVID-19 and the Cancer Consortium, and that's a cancer registry that's nationwide and includes 51 institutions. At our site, she's leading this initiative. There's one other New York site, Mount Sinai, and it's being done at a number of cancer sites, cancer centers across the United States. DBSR with this will assist Jessica and her team with any sort of recruitment that's necessary, any data entry or data pulls that they need to conduct this work. The data will be stored at Vanderbilt using a REDCap database. And this clinical data is going to be linked to the COVID-19 CU Biobank, in which they're storing residual blood samples from COVID-19 patients. So if you're interested in finding out about more of that protocol and that project, please reach out to us or Dr. Hawley about that. There's another initiative being run by George Ripsack, and that is the COVID Data Mart. Primarily, that data is in aggregate form, and it includes a number of different data elements such as demographics, labs, medication use. That's all collected in the electronic health record. There's a number of individuals that are currently assisting with manual data extraction, and we're able to assist with data extraction or data pulls that are necessary for this project. Again, any sort of data that's being collected for this project will be linked to that COVID-19 CU Biobank. There's an initiative that's being run by Rita Kakofka. This is a community-based survey that's going to be primarily run through the Get Healthy Heights portal. But we're also going to assist in trying to recruit individuals to complete this survey. It will include 106 questions. individuals on their symptomology or any sort of effects regarding around coronavirus, along with collecting some basic demographic information. What we're going to do from DVSR in particular is send out surveys to our 5,000 individuals who've participated, because the majority of them have agreed to be recontacted for future studies. So we can do that through, primarily we'll try to do that through sending out emails to participants. We can also call them and send them links, and we can send out any other, we can send them the links to access this big initiative that's being done locally within the Heights. You probably also have heard about KovacWatcher. This is a platform that is being, that was created by Bioinformatics, Infectious Diseases, and the Urban and Social Policy Program. This is not only a website, but an app that they hope to collect information on over 1 million participants. And they want individuals who have been affected by COVID, but also individuals who have not been affected medically by COVID, but obviously have, because they want to collect not only health outcomes, but a number of other components around COVID and how its effects have been on the population. As I'm part of the School of Public Health, I wanted to also share that there's a number of other initiatives going on that aren't directly cancer related, but may be a useful resource for individuals in the Cancer Center. Watha El Sadar and ICAP are running a number of research initiatives on COVID, and they're doing most of this work globally. A lot of you probably heard from Ian Lipkin last week during the symposium where he was describing a number of his research initiatives with Thomas Brees and Simon Anthony and Nishay Mishra. They're studying fomites and new surface decontamination, PCR ELISA testing, and new plasma therapies. Jeff Shaman and Juan Yang are doing a lot of work on model disease transmission using modeling approaches and outbreak timing, and trying to identify outbreak timing. Larkin McReynolds, who's in the Psych Institute and also the Epi department, is starting a large cohort of over 20 million students to better understand mental health changes. They're doing this work in collaboration with the NCAA. Andrew Rundle and Charlie Branis have done a lot of work on public mapping of affected areas and vulnerable populations in the US to better understand burden of COVID and understand resource capacity and the availability of ICU beds. So you can go to this blog if you're interested to find out more about that. But they're trying to better understand what areas might be more greatly impacted based on the number of older individuals in those areas or the number of people with underlying chronic conditions. So they've used a number of data resources such as Medicare and Medicaid to be able to identify these potential areas that will have greater resource burdens and where healthcare systems might be overwhelmed by patients. There are a number of other projects too, such as a cohort study that's being started by Pam Factor-Litvak to assess stress in pregnant women. And Mitch Elkine is also working on a COVID-19 CVD registry to look at CVD outcomes in individuals who are diagnosed with COVID-19. Peter Knoll is working on a study that will be with NINDS that is looking at how COVID-19 transfers to brain tissue. So using brain tissue samples that are stored here, he will be working on that initiative. And you're probably all aware of the website that Ken Olive has put together called CRACK, and this is the Columbia University Researchers Against COVID-19. And this is a great resource for people to identify some projects that need assistance and for you to know what's going on, particularly more lab-based type work. And I was highlighting a little bit more of the EPI studies. So these are a lot of the different projects that may be of interest to Cancer Center researchers. So with that, this was just sort of some of the studies I knew about. I know there's a lot more going on that may be of interest. And, you know, as a database shared resource, we're happy to assist with any sort of data extraction or, you know, questionnaire administration or consenting that we can. Please reach out to us. You can contact us through dbsr@columbia.edu. So with that, I didn't know if anyone had any questions.
Great. Thanks, Jeanine. We did get one question in for Regina for the biomarkers, and then while Regina's answering that, maybe people can pose their questions on the chat for Jeanine. So Regina, we got a question: does biomarker laboratory collect samples actively so we can access samples retrospectively, or do we have to identify the cohort for prospective sampling?
So we don't actively collect, but Jeanine just explained how the database shared resource collects from cancer cases. A number of years ago, I had I still have the IRB for collecting controls. We have about 50 controls that were collected. So that's the active recruitment done by the biomarker shared resource. But then most of our studies, whether they're a clinical trial or an epidemiologic study, the PI basically, you know, decides who's going to be submitting the samples. They collect the samples and then bring them to us for processing.
Okay. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions for Jeanine from the, oh, here we go, Xinhua. Can researchers access the aforementioned COVID-19 database, the one led by Holly and the data Mart? That's to you, Jeanine.
Before that one, Robin also asked a question to me, and that was, can the DBSR extend the collection of blood or tissue to children? That has been asked about previously. We're happy to work with Pete-Oncs to do that. We, at the time when we were developing the DBSR, there was a separate initiative going on in Pete-Onc, but we're happy to talk to individuals in Pete-Onc to talk about the extension of that. With that, we would obviously have to change some of our consent forms, make them administrable to children, and have assent documents, but we previously had created those. We would just need to talk to that group and figure out logistics and those sort of things. Xinhua asked, can researchers access the aforementioned COVID-19 databases, the one led by Holly and the data Mart that's led by Ripsack? Well, in those, what I believe is that they're creating them as resources so that individuals can access them. We can have you reach out to those individuals to ask about those. But I know Kathy's on the call, and she was there present when they were describing these, so she might be able to give a little bit more information. I see that she's off mute. So Kathy, did you have about that?
Sure. So the COVID-19 Cancer Oncology Registry here at Columbia, so it's part of a larger national, and it's likely to turn into an international registry, the more institutions. But obviously we're at epicenter and have among the highest caseload here in New York City. It's really interesting how quickly the IRB works when it comes to doing this COVID research. So literally, I think the IRB was submitted last week and it got approved within a day. So we just started collecting, entering data into the database on cancer patients last week, and we're more or less leaving it up to the responsibility of the primary oncologist to input the data, because we're collecting clinical data about their tumor and their treatment, as well as their clinical course with the COVID-19 infection. But the idea is that this is a REDCap database that will also be accessible to researchers here at Columbia. For the CU Biobank, there is going to be a governance process for accessing biospecimens, mainly the residual blood specimens that are being collected from the COVID-19 for that biobank from COVID-19 patients. But with respect to the clinical data, that's meant to be accessible to any researcher. And George Herbert, who's the chair of the Department of Biomedical Informatics, created this, COVID-19 data mart with the idea that through the regular channels where investigators would submit IRB protocols and track requests, and then if we have a clinical data navigator, such as Ben May for the Cancer Center, he would be able to access this aggregate data. And we work with clinical informatics to help researchers collect that clinical data. So just submit a data request through iLab, and we can work with you in terms of trying to access whatever data that you're interested in.
Yeah, or just email us at DBSR and we can talk you through some of that process. We have, so Autumn can walk you through that. So there was a question so we still have sequencing database for COVID-19 or just clinical one? Do you mean, do we have access to the sequencing of the COVID-19 or just clinical data elements?
Yes, I mean, like, do we have the sequencing database like from Mart, or if anyone has done it or the Columbia is doing it to figure it out, or like it's just clinical that we are collecting so far?
I think Jeanine is on the call as well, but these are like newly diagnosed COVID-19 positive patients. So I think right now we're just in the process of identifying the cases and making these biospecimens, the tumor specimens, available. So these are, I think we showed a slide that over 60 to 70 patients thus far. This was as of last week, but the number of COVID positive cases are increasing, exponentially on a weekly basis.
Right. Okay, so it is being done.
I don't think.
Okay, got it. So like Columbia is not doing any such thing regarding the sequencing, particularly for each patient as such.
I think there are some sequencing initiatives going on. I'm not sure if it's being applied to every single patient that's coming to the door, but I do know some people within the epi department who are doing work like that, and I'm sure there's work going on across the medical campus, but we could find out more details about that and get back to you too.
Okay, thank you.
And Robin had a question about if children can be included in the COVID-19 cancer database. I would reach out to Jessica about that. I didn't know if it's solely an adult database or if they're including children in it, but that would be a good question to ask her, because she's very closely linked, obviously, with what's happening nationally and then also what's occurring here. So it'd be good to talk to her about that. And then if it's not being done here, I'm sure it can be something that could be started.
This is Kathy. I don't think there's an age restriction. Obviously, there are much fewer cases that are being identified in the pediatric population, but for this COVID-19 oncology registry, I don't think they're restricting just to adults.
Okay. Are there any other questions from anybody for either of our shared resource directors today? I don't see anything else on my chat. I don't know if Regina or Jeanine have received any further questions on the chat directly to them.
No, just the ones I answered before. Yeah.
No.
Okay. I think, Anil, did you want to make any comments, or we can finish up? I'll just say that if you guys receive a survey at the end of this, please respond. Stuart Fisher will be sending out a survey. If you are on this Zoom and you see that you have a name that is not fully fleshed out, if it's just, Alex or Moto5, could you please email Stuart Fisher, who is on the announcement, and let him know that you were in attendance so that he can gather your feedback when this is over. Anil, did you have any comments you wanted to make? You're on mute. Let me unmute you. There you go.
Sorry.
Okay, you're off mute now, I think.
Thank you. This was really, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Regina and Jeanine. It was really fantastic. Huge participation and extremely helpful. So we're very appreciative and look forward to continuation of this series on consecutive Tuesdays going forward. So thank you again for your time. We appreciate it.
Great, thank you. They put it together in record time with a very quick request from us to be the first presenters in this series. So appreciate their time and effort, and appreciate everybody attending. We'll be on again next Tuesday, continuing this seminar series. So we look forward to seeing everybody on again.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.